New midnight class changes, 4th of December. What's up guys, Petko here. We have been waiting for those changes for the past 12 days. Finally they arrived, and with that, the 4 new dungeons that were coming in Season 1 will be also able to be tested. A lot of things have changed, so let's dive in, talk about it, and see how everything is gonna turn out. Also, disclaimer, this Sunday is gonna start. We're gonna start the first tier list builder, a progressive midnight tier list that will continue all the way until the start of the season. So enjoy it, and let's dive right in. Alright, so first of all, we're talking about Death Knight. There's several things changing to Death Knight. I guess the biggest changes are done to Unholy, but let's see what the rest has gotten. For us, the case, small changes here. Exterminate no longer produces the rune of Obliterate, that's fine. You are most of the time capping on runes anyway, so that's fine. Some small changes to Rider of the Apocalypse. The Throw Bane Chains of Ice doesn't do damage. To compensate that, Morgreen has been buffed. Sunlin changes, minor one. The Secret has been moved to the choice node with the Blood Soaked Ground, okay? So Blood Decay had a lot of issues. One of the biggest issues on Blood Decay was the fact that they were doing an insane amount of damage due to several bugs. The first one being their talent that increased the Blood Bow damage. Those bugs have been fixed, so the Blood Bow damage has been reduced quite substantially, at least from your overall damage. You're gonna see it in a bit. There's new talents introduced here to Blood Decay. That's fine. Unholy also gets new talents. Plagues is gonna do 30% more damage. This is, by the way, all for Sunlin. Apparently, Vampiric Strike now is gonna kind of fasten the amount of time it takes your Plagues to do damage. Also, Vampiric Strike does more damage. Frenzied Bloodthirst now increases the damage of your Epidemic per stack of Essence of a Blood Queen. I feel like they're trying to make Sunlin Unholy work, although Rider has been the standard build so far for Unholy. We're going to be testing Sunlin later on Unholy, see if that's going to play out the way it's supposed to play out, you know. But that's about it. So those are buffs for Unholy and Sunlin. So now Blood Decay, biggest changes here. Blood Bow damage got reduced by 12%. I think this tooltip has already been active for the past couple of, I guess, resets. So it's just here to remind us that, you know, that happened. Blood Shield now appropriately displays the observed amount up to 50% of your health. Melee auto attack has been also increased by 150%. And you got a new talents here. When Blood Shield is active, taking direct damage reflects the damage dealing as shadow. Okay, whatever. That's a reflect back damage. I don't know if that's gonna be good or not. I guess we're gonna test it out. So here's the nerf to the Blood Bow damage. It's now gonna be reduced to 8%. Was 15 before, now it's 8%. Death strike chance to grant Blood Bow charge reduction from 20 to 10. Once again, all of the Blood Bow multipliers were the ones that were bugged were fixed. Plus, on top of this, you get a nerf. So now you're gonna see a much bigger nerf coming for them, and we're gonna see how this is gonna play out. Honestly, Frost Decay, Apex Talents has been updated. Frostfur and Fury extends the duration of the active pillar by 2 to 4 seconds. I'm not sure if I don't think Frostfur and Fury did that to extend the pillar. Maybe I'm wrong. That's fine though. That's pretty juicy. 4 seconds extra pillar, insane. Now the biggest change, Unholy. Pestilence has been redesigned, consumes 100% of your plagues around you and 150% of their remaining damage instantly, and gain a charge of Putrefy. So the way that you're trying to make this spec work is get a lot more Putrifies in, and Putrefy to do more damage, although that hasn't really been tuned properly in my opinion. Outbreak now, which is the disease that you put it at the start of the fight, is replaced by Pestilence. Necromancer Cunning summons one lesser go, reanimation does more damage, and as you can see, all disease eruption effects such as Blood Burst or Pestilence are now consolidated into the 1 damage spell. They're trying to make it easier for you to manage your dots or diseases on Unholy. DT doesn't do any more damage. Everything here is being buffed by quite a bit. Graveyard by 25, which is the spender, which is the pretty much epidemic spender, but once your Apex talents are working, Epidemic more damage, Dead Koyo, Rapid Variation, Pet Good, Lesser Good does a lot more damage now, and your pets as well. Soul Reaper 100% buff. It's like all of this pretty much gives me the vibe of them actually making Unholy tuning properly, because right now Unholy was very severely under tuned, so you wouldn't really been able to grasp the amount of damage you can do. But that's actually gonna put them in the right direction where either builds could work, pet or disease. If you guys didn't know, there are two builds right now. One focus heavy on pet summoning and melee attacks, and the other one focusing heavily on diseases and pestilence. So I'm gonna try both later and see what's up. Moving forward to a DH, Havoc DH. Has been some changes here for Eldraki. Eldraki has been bugged for quite a while on Havoc. Hopefully that's gonna all fix it. But Fury of the Eldraki damage reduced by 18% and is now reduced damage beyond a target. That seems to be the biggest change here for Eldraki as Havoc. Vengeance hasn't been touched. Fails card and voice card. Let me check right now. So Demon Surge now does chaos damage, not fire, but the damage got reduced by 15%. Right. That's fine because there's a lot of chaos multipliers that made you do more chaos damage, so maybe that's compensated, I guess. Burning Blades effectively reduced to 30% instead of 50. That's small nerf here. Nothing for Devourer, by the way. Icons, many talents, and spells have been updated. Just icons, whatever. Nobody cares. Havoc changes are Blind Fury causes item to generate less Fury. That's fine. Furious Gaze grants you less haste than before. A Fire Inside is now less RNG. Instead, just gives you CDR and Immolation aura for 6 seconds. And Netherwalk has been removed. Now, Netherwalk has already been gone. The original immunity. It was kind of built in inside your blur. Once you press blur, you get 2.5 seconds of immunity. Now that is gone. You only get a DR, but you have double stack of blur, which is still fine. You can play the other talent that gets you a little bit more durability. That's fine, I guess. Druid. Let me check. So, Druid with a Claw Pharaoh Druid. Twin Claw damage increased by 20%. Ursin potential doesn't really matter, but it's useless regardless. Elune's Chosen. Light Elune triggers Fury Film less frequent. Lunar Amplification has been removed. Stellar and move to the Lunar Amplification previous position. Okay. Balance Elune's Fury has been nerfed a little bit. Okay, so keep in mind that Balance didn't really play Elune's Chosen anyway, so now they're nerfing it, which might push Balance even further away from them. Keep it of the Groove. Moonfire cast with trains no longer gives you AP. Less AP means less spenders. Less haste you could be getting as Keeper of the Groove. Orbital strike damage increased by 30, and damage of Stellar Flare applies increased by 30. I guess it's a redistribution of damage. Whirling Stars increase haste you gain during Celestial Alignment by additional 10% haste. Okay, that's why Centenarios might go nerfed. You get less haste here, but more haste during cooldowns. It's pretty good. Force of Nature also summons 4 trains instead of 2. Pretty good. Alright, so on and on, it seems to be a redistribution of damage because Sylvan Beckoning has been nerfed quite heavily. The Star Search and Starfall they do is this less damage. Fine. Balance Druids, what have done to them? Global cooldown after activating Solar or Lunar Eclipse shortened to 0.5 seconds instead of the normal 1.5. Okay, so it wouldn't be that bad pressing either Eclipses, which is faster. But all spell damage reduced by 17% out on nerf, by the way. That's not just anything. Whirling Stars updated Celestial Alignment cooldown is reduced by 60 seconds and it now has 2 charges. If I'm not mistaken, that will make your measure cooldowns every minute and you have 2 charges. Okay. I mean, for 70% less damage, having much more frequent cooldowns might not be that bad. But because they also buffed the Starfall and Star Surge by 8%, right? And also buffed some of the spells to correctly scale with Mastery, so that means even more damage. Wild Mushroom has been buffed, although people played Sunseeker Mushrooms most of the time because it's just easier to play around. But they've been nerfed, it seems like. Meteor damage increased by 150, Sunfire, Moonfire by 35% increased damage, Shooting Star more damage, less Astral Power generation, it seems like, from all the spells here. That's pretty much it. That is a TLDR. Alright, so overall, I'm not sure that's a nerf or buff to Balance Druid. I'm going to call it a redistribution of power, and I'm going to test it later on to see if it's actually nerfed. Feral Druid also got small changes here. Swipe damage reduced by 8%. Shred damage reduced by 8%. Interesting here. When Straight to Moonfire generates combo points, they have 200% chance to generate the full combo points. Okay, so this should strengthen your single target a little bit, which is fine. But the nerf to shoot it in swipe here is gonna be most definitely notable. Third ambush also increases the damage done by affected attacks by 50%. Now that's gonna be a must talent in that case. And Focus Frenzy increases Feral Frenzy damage by 40%. I'm pretty sure Feral Frenzy was already doing insane damage. So that being buffed by 40 makes no sense. They should have buffed like Feral tuning is pretty bad. They should have just buffed your Rake, buffed Rip, for example, or even Ferocious Bites, but they just did pretty much nothing. I'm pretty disappointed with Feral so far. At least this tuning, I don't think it hits the spot for them, but whatever. In the Restoration, Druid healing reduced by 5%. Everbloom splashes less healing. Seems just to be an overall nerf to Restoration Druid. That's it. Moving forward to Evoker. Evoker personal and pet damage reduced by 15%. They nerfed Evoker 2 weeks ago, personal damage by 15%, I believe. Now it gets another nerf. Duplicate no longer increases even might, self damage. Wow, that's a huge nerf. Duplicate 100% increase to even might, no longer snapshots. That is also nerfed. The extension of even might was also nerfed. Now it's going to be extending only up to 0.25 seconds instead of 0.5. Wow, okay, that's actually quite a big nerf here for Augmentation Evoker. Seems like Blizzard already hates them. Devastation Evoker, the most effect now diminishes by 25% per empowered spell cast. That's actually a huge nerf. That means your major cooldown cannot be infinite anymore. Previously, when I played Flame Shaper in AoE, I had major cooldowns for like 45-50 seconds. Now, if I gotta be honest, probably I'm gonna get extra 10 seconds to 12 seconds per major cooldown, which is not that bad. Not that bad. I mean, that's noticeable nerf, by the way, but still not that bad. Hopefully they have changed the Consume Flame bug that made it do more damage. Press Evoker is experiencing redistribution of power once again. Meritera Blessing got nerfed. Living Flame got buffed, and Verdant Embrace to compensate. Although the Dream Simulacrum has been nerfed itself, they try to compensate that nerf with the Verdant Embrace. So yeah, that's about it. So it's been pretty much redistribution of power. Red spells deals 20% more damage, and healing with Living Flame and Fire Breath increases by 1-2% of your maximum health. Okay, so that's pretty much it, as you can see. Moving forward to Hunter. Dark Ranger Hunter has been pretty much dead for BM Hunter. Beltos now is gonna make your pet damage do 100% more damage from 3 to 6%. That's a huge buff to Beltos. But I still think Pack Leader is just way ahead, especially that Stampede does, 20% of the overall damage just by having a hero talent, which is crazy. Pack Leader, it seems that Wolverine Gaze has been nerfed significantly. It also, okay, now it stacks up to 10 instead of 25. That's a huge nerf, by the way. That's a huge nerf to Pack Leader. I still think it's gonna be better, honestly. Interesting. Let's see what they say. Beastmaster Hunter has been performing stronger than intended. No shit, Colombo. Between several bug fixes and adjustments below, we are hoping to bring their damage into a better spot relative to the other DPS specialization. Most of these changes are around the Wolverine Cry buff from the Pack Leader hero talents, which is now a large percentage damage increase and has a relatively high uptime. Yeah, okay, that pretty much makes sense. Also, Q command got nerfed by 15%, which means less damage from Q cleave. So that should bring your overall damage lower, but I still think it's gonna be insane. Doesn't really matter. This is not as big nerf as you guys think it is. BM Hunter is still gonna be absolutely crazy and better. Moving forward to Mage, Frostfire Mage. Let's see what they've done. Increases shatter damage instead of Ice Lance damage. This nerf has already been active for the past weeks, just hasn't been implemented. Frostfire bolt cast time is now shorter. It was a 175 instead of 2. Heatsink has been updated, now increases flurry damage by 20 instead of 30, nerfed Heatsink. Spellslinger got some changes to mostly do passive damage, but that should be a buffed Spellslinger. Question is Spellslinger going to be now the play for both Arcane and Frost? We're going to find out soon enough after testing. But pretty much TLDR, more passive damage here. Okay. Overflow energy grants 20% increased fireball critical strike instead of 10% critical strike. That means more hot streak for fire mage. That's fine. Arcane mage got heavily buffed. Definitely deserved. They should have even get more buffs on arcane pulls. Blast pulls, surge, and arcane aura by 20% buff, and missiles as well, and arcane barrage by 40% buff. By the way, okay. I think that talent arcane pulls needs like 100% buff in my opinion. Fire Mage, what they're doing is they're introducing Scorch back and Heat Shimmer. Okay, very interesting. Let's see what they've done now. While combustion is not active, damage from Ignite has a small chance to make your next Scorch instant and deal 100% increased damage and deal damage as true a target is below 30. That's pretty much the execute range. Causes Meteor to do more damage, so they're trying to buff Meteor. Fireball always critical strike enemies below 30. When Fireball or Scorch damage enemy below 30, Fireball does 50% more damage and Scorch does 250 more. I want to see how that's going to play out. Burnout deals 75% of the Ignite damage remaining instead of 50. That's a huge buff to Fire Mage, by the way. Fireball also shorten cast. Kindling also is going to be 1 point instead of 2 points. Now you're going to get flat 60% 60 seconds CDR on combustion. That means 1 point is going to be free for you. All Scorch is gonna return as a talent, not as baseline. Interesting. And they removed also Pyro Mastery and Mark of the Fire Lord. Overall, this should be a buff to Fire Mage, although Fire Mage is not in a bad position so far. I like it personally. Frost Mage, one of the issues to have with Frost Mage right now is the freezing stacks. Most of the time you are overcapping freezing stacks. There's not enough spenders for you to spend them, and most people are just ignoring freezing. They just do their rotation, and if they do damage with freezing stacks, so be it. I think that's a bad system. So I was asking for a rework and they made that possible. Perfect. Let's see what they've done. When there's a new talent, Cold Winter's End, when somebody dies with freezing, they explode, do damage reduced beyond 5 targets. Whatever. Lonely Winter now is going to give you a spell damage increase by 3%, but it's a choice not with Water Elemental. That's a no-brainer. Fuck the Water Ellie, you play spell damage increase by 3%, in my opinion. Glacial Spike damage increased by 5% and now applies 2 additional stacks of freezing. Again, you overcap on freezing. You want freezing to be consumed ASAP. Glacial Shatter, Glacial Spike no longer applies freezing and now shatters 5 stacks of freezing. I will be honest, even though this is better talent to have, people are gonna play the upper talent. Why? Because there's more damage with Spike. And the freezing damage itself is not justified enough for you to play the downstairs talent, which is pretty bad. See that new talent, Iceland reduces the cooldown of Frozen Orb by 0.5 seconds and increased by 0.1 for each stack of freezing shattered. Okay, that's a good talent. You're gonna get much more often Frozen Orbs because the only time you can get CDR of Frozen Orb is by a Ray of Frost. So that's good. You're gonna get extra 5-10 seconds of CDR maybe. That's fine. I think it's a Frost now too. Charges baseline. Frostbite updated, no longer causes Blizzard to apply freezing, now shatters, deal damage to nearby enemies, reduced by 5 enemies, okay? Hand of Frost now applies only 1 stack of freezing, doesn't really matter, you overcap on stacks anyway, that's useless. Causes your next ice lamps to shatter additional stacks of freezing, that's good. Sprint rate been updated, no longer applies freezing to enemies, damage by the area of effect, interesting. So they're trying to make you swap targets easier. Glacial Assault does more damage by 200%. Shatter damage increased by 25%. Blizzard nerfed by 25%, by the way. Frostbolt now is going to be shorter cast. Season 1 tier set has been changed. Flurry damage increased by 10%. And Flurry has 10% chance to grant Fingers of Frost. The 4-piece Fingers of Frost increases shatter damage by 15% instead of 10%. Small buff here for that. Many talents got repositioned. Interesting to see. I'll love to research a little bit more. Monk. Master of Harmony, small changes here done to them. Let's see what they done to Brewmaster. It seems like the Apex talents got hit. Drink the Brew has 40% chance to leave you with an empty bottle, which is tossed along with your next Cake Smash and deal physical damage to your target. It ricochets up to 4 times at 80% effectiveness. Rank 3 gain empty bottle. Resets the cooldown of Cake Smash, and its next cast costs 100% less energy. Physical damage dealt increased by 20%. When you cast Fortify on Brew, also lets your Brew you tap a fresh cake granting yourself a 2 nearby allies a refreshing drink and leaving you with empty barrel. Empty barrel damage increased by 100%. Okay. Empty barrel now may ricochet back to enemies they've already hit, and empty barrel damage increased by 50%. Alright, I'll take that. Melee damage increased by 50%, staggering strike, stagger clear reduced by 40%. Interesting. Cake volley has been removed, unfortunately, and field of fire and empty cellar no longer share a selection node. Okay. Quality of life changes plus some minor buffs here for Brewmaster. Mistweaver. Invigorating Mist Healing increased by 100%. Invoke Yulun Jade Serpent has been nerfed. Unison has been removed. And some small fixes for Mistweaver. Not that many changes for that. I was hoping for more. And finally, Windwalker, Slicing Winds damage reduced by 50%. Okay, that might be the death of Windwalker, by the way. This might be the actual death of the Windwalker, Slicing Winds. Not the spec itself, just Slicing Winds, which actually is pretty good because nobody likes Slicing Winds. Hurricane Volt now increases Slicing Winds damage by 40% instead of 100. Okay. Again, you are probably not gonna play Slicing Winds. I will have to cook a new build. Holy Paladin, some changes here. Veneration. A chance to trigger Judgment and Absorb Shield got reduced, so Veneration got nerfed. Judgment cooldown reduced by 22%. Holy Shock cooldown is now 6 seconds instead of 7.5 seconds. Another buff to Holy Shock, by the way. Beacon of Life now transfers only 10% of the healing. And some bug fixes done to them. That's all for Holy Paladin. Protection Paladin, the only change done to them is melee damage increased by 100%. Wow, I was expecting a lot more for Protection Paladin, by the way. Maybe some CTR on their measured cooldowns, maybe some more damage reduction. I mean, damage is fine, but durability on Protection Paladin is a bit of an issue. Retribution Paladin Apex Talons no longer grants a Righteous Cause or Art of War when Avenging is cast. Okay, Judge, Jury, and Executioner now causes 1 holy power consuming ability to refund its cost was 2. Divine Resonance now grants additional holy power instantly rather than waiting for a cast of additional judgments. Okay, so not many things changed for Retribution either. Okay, moving forward to Priest. By the way, the reason why this patch load is so big because it's 2 weeks combined in one. Usually it's not as big. Shadow Priest. Mindfully Insanity generates less insanity. You don't really press Mindfully Insanity anyway. You rarely press that anyway. Most of the time it's just Mind Blast, Mind Blast, Mind Blast, and Devouring Plagues. Halo generates less insanity, okay? Some changes to Void Fever. Void Infusion causes Void Blast to generate 2 additional insanity instead of 6. That means less overall insanity for Shadow. Discipline Priest, some good changes done to them. Let me check what's up. Mindbender redesigned for this Priest right now. New talent they have. Penance bolts sear the enemy, dealing 30% of its damage over 8 seconds. Shadow Word Death deals damage 2 additional times at 15% effectiveness. Okay. Players now learn level 80. So pretty much play is now baseline. Good. Greater Smite increases smite damage by 20% per stack. Instead of 25, that's a nerf. Evangelism no longer causes Power Word Radiance to have no cooldown. Instead, the next to cast an instant. Archangel makes Evangelism increase your healing and absorb by 15% for 18 seconds. That's good. That's a new talent, I guess. Atonement heals 50% of damage done with 60. Nerf to Atonement. Nerf to Mind Blast. Void Shield has been changed quite a bit if you play Void Fever, Disc Priest. Reflects 25% of the damage done. Flash Shield healing increased by 30. Smite damage increased by 40. Aha! So they nerfed the talent that makes your smite do less damage, do more damage, but overall smite got buffed. Okay, and that's why Atonement got nerfed because smite got buffed too. Okay. Evangelism casts Power Word Radiance at 150% effectiveness instead of 200. A lot of changes hidden to this priest actually. Mindbender got 100% more damage. Shadowfield has 40% chance to trigger instead of being based on the target current health. Purge the Wicked increases holy damage by 10% instead of 15%. or Oculist the same thing from 20 to 15. Okay, a lot of changes done to that. Interesting. Holy Priest got healing reduced by 25, but Prayer of Healing increased by 15%. Flash Show increased by 30%. Cosmic Wave now increases healing of Cosmic Ripple by 15 instead of 60%. Okay, that's actually, I guess, a redistribution of healing power, but overall should be a nerf. Shadow Priest. They are pretty much TLDR. Most of your abilities will generate less insanity. Less insanity means less Mind Blast. Less Shadow Word Madness, which is a Devouring Plague, which means less operations, which means overall even less damage. That's the TLDR. And on top of this, Operation got hit by 30%. Shadow Word Madness got hit by 30%. Extension got hit by quite a bit. You're going to be extending less now, but that's still fine. Doesn't really matter. They buff Mindbender, but nobody plays Mindbender. Okay. I think that's overall a substantial nerf to Shadow Priest. Also, Tormented Spirit's chance to trigger reduced by 40%. Boys and girls, I want to check how the new Shadow Priest is, but this sounds like a substantial nerf to the spec. Rogue Talents, Deathstalker small nerfs. Subtlety Rogue is being also hit, I would say. Damage, actually, Deathstalker mark damage increased by 25 only for Sub-Rogue. And now Symbiotic Victory, Symbols of Death, increased damage of next rate or Black Powder by 50 instead of 18%. That is a 10% nerf, 30% nerf, I think, give or take. Maybe less, maybe like 25% nerf. Fatebound, also a Fatebound coin flip damage reduced by 20%. That was too strong, I guess. I think Outlaw and Assa played Fatebound most of the time. And Trickster Sub-Rogue has been buffed because of Nimble Flurry. We'll see if that's going to be better. Assa Rogue got nerfed by 16%. And also melee auto attack damage got nerfed by 20%. However, Fatal Concussion is getting a buff. Now it's going to be a 40% value instead of 30. That's fine. Outlaw Rogue, instant poison damage increased by 50%. I think instant poison resulted in like around 2% of your single target, give or take. Sometimes a bit more, depends. So that's fine. Blade Rush damage to your primary target increased by 15%. That means more prior damage. Scalding Strike damage increased by 15%. Main Gouge, which is your mastery, got increased by 150%, but all damage reduced by 16%. All of those buffs are not going to offset the major nerf here. I think Outlaw Rogue, what they needed is the AoE to be slightly tuned down, very slightly. This is way too big of a nerf. And the ST to be buffed. Perhaps Blade Flurry nerf and buff on general abilities to compensate that. They need more ST. That's what they need. I don't think that's going to help as much. Sub-Rogue, Black Powder nerfed by pretty much 9.5%. Secret Technique got buffed, and also a talent that improves the Secret Technique damage got buffed. I think that is still under-tuned. They should buff it even more. Replicating Shadows damage bonus for Shadow Clones got reduced from 15 to 20. They weren't doing that much damage anyway, so that's fine. Most of the damage came from Black Powder and Shuriken Storm. So that's fine. That's also a new talent as well, if you like that. Shaman. Restoration, Farseer got nerfed. They're gonna do less healing with us Ancestors. Mystic Knowledge now increases the recharge rate of Riptide by 10%. It was 30 before. Okay. Totemic changes. It seems like it was also nerfed for Shaman. Okay. Primordial Bond has been redesigned. Your Earth ally no longer taunts nearby enemies. Aha. So Primordial Bond is not going to give you 5% DR once you summon your Fire Elemental, for example, or your Elemental from your Stormkeeper. That means Ellie is going to get even less tanky than before. Or in general, all specs of the Shaman, you know, enhance and restoration. So even less tanky, you're going to be a Shaman. Interesting. Now, Earth Ellie is not going to taunt. That's good. That means you're going to cast that during, I guess, packs. So that's fine. Molten Rat from Ellie Shaman has got nerfed. The Lava Burst will do increased damage by 15% instead of 25. Elemental Overload damage got nerfed from Echo Chamber from 40 to 25. This is actually a huge nerf. This is a huge nerf here, because that's where your damage comes from, overloads. That's a huge nerf. Primal Storm, Elemental Storm Fury now deals its full damage over 4 seconds instead of 8. That's fine. Nobody played Primal Elementalist anyway. Your Fire Elemental, I've been saying this for the past 5 years. Elementals are just doing no damage. They should do more baseline damage. Now they're getting buffed by quite a bit. 500% more pet damage or 300 in some abilities. I don't think that's gonna solve the issue still, but it's something. This will not offset the nerfs done with Echo Chamber. It's fine, but it's not gonna be, you know, as big. Some bug fixes here. Power of the Maelstrom now has less chance to occur. It was anyway useless in Mythic Plus because it wasn't working as before. Whatever. Nobody cared about this anyway. I guess it's ST talent right now. And Echo of the Elements got also removed. That's a talent that you get a free elemental once your elemental runs out to play. Let's say if you summon Fire early, after the duration is gone, you're gonna get another elemental. That's gone. That means even less damage because Elemental Unity will give you less damage because you don't have extra elementals. Okay. And Restoration Shaman chain heals increased by 15%, less mana cost, and more healing waves. So that they nerfed Fires here. They nerfed the damage, but they give you more baseline power. Oh, I guess also 5% out of nerf. Never mind. So it's still nerf. Okay. Warlock, Diabolus Warlock, Touch of Rancora has been nerfed significantly, by the way. From 100% more damage to Hand of Gul'dan, kills both Terrain of Fire and Shadow Burn to by now it's 20. Lol. That's a huge Diabolus nerf. And also Eye Explosion got nerfed by 30%. Lol. Nuked. Hellcaller Wither has been buffed by 35%. That's good actually, because Wither damage was pretty weak, so that's gonna make it better. Soul Harvester got some changes too. Okay. Let me check what they done to Affliction. Darkglare with Armor Forge from the Antoros, increasing their armor by 10%. I-Beam now jumps up to 4 additional targets and deals... Why the fuck does my Darkglare needs more armor? What the fuck is that? What the fuck is that? Darkglare doesn't take any aggro, doesn't tank anything. What the fuck is that? Huh? What are they doing? Fate 2 Equals has been updated. When a stable affliction expires, it has a 10% chance to reapply. That's an insane ST talent, by the way. For 8. Call of the Week, nobody played that, by the way. Nobody played Dark Harvest because you get so many shards, you have no time to play Dark Harvest. That's useless. Whatever. Summon Darkglare been updated. Summon Darkglare from the Twisting Nether. Increase the damage of your Agony, Corruption, Wither, and Stable Affliction by 20% while active. Okay, so you want to play the talent that increases the duration of that Darkglare, 100%. Because you're gonna get more damage from Agony, Corruption, Wither, and Stable Affliction. Hopefully it doesn't snapshot. It's gonna serve you 20 seconds baseline, so it's gonna be like 25 seconds. Okay, that's pretty good. Blasting the target shadow damage increased by 10% was 45 for every damage overtime effect that you have. Dark Glare Beam also got increased by 80%. So it seems like regardless of how many dots you have during Dark Glare, you're still going to do good damage because the baseline damage of Dark Glare got buffed. And also, you're going to do 20% more damage with Agony, Corruption, Wither, and Stable Affliction. That's pretty good, boys. That is pretty good. I like this rework. I think this is better. Unstable Affliction got hit by 25%. Okay. This makes no sense. Unstable Affliction was already doing... Like, I'm going to put it this way. 3 Unstable Afflictions were doing less damage than Agony. So, them to nerf Unstable Affliction again because they nerfed it by 75% 2 weeks ago. Now it's nerfed by 25 again. It's ridiculous. That is crazy bad, by the way. Malevolent Visionary has been removed. That's the talent that made your Darkglare do more damage. Agony also got nerfed by 40%. So I guess they buffed Wither, but they nerfed Agony by 40%. And then also nerfed Unstable Affliction. I don't know, dude. Demonology. Let's check what they did to Demonology. Evil Eye got removed. Eye of Gul'dan got removed. Grimoire Imp Lord does 120% more damage. And so is the Ravager. They didn't do as much damage anyways. That's whatever. Use this as utility, not as damage. Felguard damage increased by 60%. Bro, Demon was already pumping by the way on ST. But that's insane buff to Felguard. Wild Imp Felguard both increased by 50%. Hand of Gul'dan by 20%. Doomguard by 85% increased damage. Wow. Doom does 50% more damage. I think the nerf that I bought is pretty hard, so that's maybe a compensation. New talent, your demons do 2% more damage for each demon you control. Maybe. We're gonna try later, dude. Power 7 Implosion, summon 1 imp, gang boss for every 2 out imp sacrificed. Okay. Okay. Destruction Warlock, some changes. Position several talents got updated. Reduce the cooldown of Summon Inferno by 30 seconds. Increase your mastery by 3%. Okay, I like that. Shadow Demon Fire. Fire additional 2 bolts. Increase critical strike chance of your destruction spells by 6% instead of... What the fuck? That's crazy. Okay. The Mage NERFED redesign. Chaos Bolt and Shadow Burn have 10% chance to rip open a hole in a space and time. Ruin the redesign, increase critical strike chance of your destruction spells by 30%. Okay. Casting Soulfire summons an Overfiend. Opening a Dimensional Rift has a chance to summon an Overfiend instead. Okay. Chaos Bolt damage reduced by 35. Conflagrate damage reduced by 35. Incinerate damage reduced by 25. Lake of Fire was the most OP shit ever in Destruction. That was a talent that made you, after you cast Cataclysm, do more damage, you know, under them. So I think even by 50, that's still going to be insane damage, by the way. Okay, that seems to be a major destruction changes here. Some of the talents got removed. That's about it. I love the changes. I want to test them now. Warrior last spec here. Mountain Tank got buffed by 100%. Sorry, Thunder Blast. Mountain Tank got buffed by 100% only. This is new talent here, Stance Mastery. Battle Stance increase critical strike damage by abilities by 3%. Berserker Stance increase your auto attack by 3% at the speed. And Defensive Stance increase the attack deals... Sorry, when attack deals 30% of your maximum health in damage, the damage is reduced by 15%. No, that's good. I don't know. I guess it's passive DR. Javelier got redesigned. Range of your thrown abilities increased by 5 yards. Damage done by Champion Spear, Shattering Throw, and Wrecking Throw increased by 20. That's useless. You play Javelier for extra silence on your throw. Axe, I think it's called. Heroic Throw, sorry. Shattering Throw and Wrecking Throw silence non-player for 30 seconds. Aha, okay. I see what they've done. So less silence you have. Thunderclap damage increased by 100%. Question is, do these guys stack? Do they increase the cap by 100%? Sorry, the clap by 100% damage. And also the Thunder Blast by 100%. That would be insane if they done so. Rent initial damage increased by 6%. That's whatever. Last time got removed. That's one less button to press as defensives, I guess. Arms got outer buff by 20%. That's interesting. So they outer nerf arms by 20% 2 weeks ago, and now they buffed it again by 20. And it was doing Z-Dam. Now it will do actual good damage. Thunderclap damage reduced by 20%, and Master of Warfare got updated. Your single target abilities can now trigger Master of Warfare. Instead, it was overpower. Okay. Okay, fair enough. Fury Warrior, you can now transmog one-hander swords as two-handers as Fury. Enjoy. That's great. Apex Talons complete rework on Fury. Rampage grants a stack of Berserk, increasing strength by 1% for 8 seconds. Multiple applications of Berserk may overlap. Okay. Recklessness reduces Rampage rage cost by 30 and increases Rampage damage by 10%. Recklessness grants 3 stacks of Berserk and duration increased by 50%. That's your last cap. And Thunderclap damage decreased by 60%. Aha. So then they buffed it by 100% as a baseline for the Warrior, but only for Fury it got nerfed by 60. Okay. Fair enough, I guess. I think those Apex talents are better. Protection Warrior, it just got major buffs. Everything by 100%. Everything. They needed that. Because the tuning of Prot Warrior was fucking disastrously bad. I love that. And Devastation Focus got buffed too. This all day has been removed. Okay. Overall, I really hope Protection Warrior can survive because right now it's just being down bad. So, yeah. That's welcoming changes done to Prot Warrior. Anyway, guys, that's everything so far. large patch notes, because again, they didn't post anything for 2 weeks, so it was naturally longer. Again, this Sunday at 2 o'clock Central European Summertime, we will be doing our first progressive tier list, where we're talking about all specs and classes, including healers and tanks. I rank them as a first initial, I guess, rank, and we're gonna continue to update the rankings all the way until season begins. Anyway, guys, thank you for watching. I'll see you next time. Peace out.